Good morning, guys. Let's buckle up and prepare for a big show today. At the top of our news today is Donald Trump's massive betrayal against the American people in support of his own personal interests and, of course, Vladimir Putin, the man he worships. And I also have a second story, and I think we've got a lot of alliteration here, but it involves Kamala Harris's media blitz and the content of what she was able to communicate to, I don't know, was it maybe 25 million people? I want to look at that for you. Yes, Victor Shi, who is on the Harris campaign, put this up yesterday that in the past couple of days, Kamala Harris has gone on, as we saw, the podcast Call Her Daddy, 5 million viewers. 60 Minutes on Monday, 10.5 million viewers. The View yesterday, which was Tuesday, 2.45 million viewers. Howard Stern's show, also yesterday, 10 million. And then last night, Stephen Colbert, 3.2 million. So while she did that, she communicated some amazing policy ideas, including a breaking one that we had not heard of, that I'm going to tease here and we'll get into detail, means so much to me. I almost feel like she was reading our minds. This is a policy designed to help people like many of us who either are or have been part of what's called the sandwich generation, where we're still raising our kids, still in the prime of our careers, however we define those, and also have aging parents. And she has an incredible solution for this. I will talk solution, support for this, and in brief, and we will get to this. And I am facing this now, which is this. You may not know this, but Medicare does not cover in-home care. It just doesn't. It will cover things like if it's actually a medical need, someone will pop into your house. But if someone in your family, unfortunately, my mother will not need this, it turns out, but someone in your family needs assistance in things like bathing or meal preparation or any of the things of daily life so they can live in their home and thrive with their family in their later years, that's not covered. It will bankrupt you if you even have the money. Instead, they need to be put away in a home, in a facility, even if they would rather be in their home. And Harris is dealing with that. Okay, so let's start first. This massive betrayal. And I want to start with the fact that this comes from Bob Woodward of Woodward and Bernstein, not just of Watergate era, but of recent reportage. And Bob Woodward has a book coming out later this month called War. And in this book, he is going to break some stories, and we're learning about them now, about Trump's behavior and his betrayal, both while he was in office as well as when he was out of office, things that he was doing to serve his own personal interests at the expense of the American people and our foreign policy. Now, I know a lot of folks are saying, what the F, Bob Woodward? Why did you keep this to yourself? Are you just trying to sell books? And here's what I have to say. Bob Woodward is a reporter. He is a man. What the F is Merrick Garland doing? It is entirely on him. I want you to remember that it was Merrick Garland who just took a pass after he was handed on a silver platter the Mueller report. He just let it go. If he had continued to pursue that, if he had appointed a special counsel the minute that he was sworn into office in March of 2021, not only would we have known more about Russian interference in the 2016 election, because remember, Donald Trump refused to speak to the special counsel Mueller. Well, guess what? They could have gone into more depth. Now he was no longer a president and actually made him sit down and speak to a special counsel. One. Two, we would not be right now waiting to have the case before Tanya Chutkan involving the insurrection tried. It's all pretty much on Merrick Garland. And let me just add to this. One of the revelations in Bob Woodward's book is that apparently Joe Biden regrets. He regrets hiring Merrick Garland. So just so you know, it's not just me and you. Okay, so let's talk about what is happening here. Yesterday, the New York Times came out with a book review, and this was from Peter Baker, and this book review of Bob Woodward's new book. And let me just that's coming out. Here is the first part of this, and this is where Peter Baker, reporting from Washington, says as follows, and that just weeks ahead of the election, and actually, let me just blow this up. Okay, just weeks ahead of an election, Americans are once again being confronted with a familiar, if vexing, question that has never been definitively resolved. What is up with former President Donald Trump and President Vladimir V. Putin of Russia? What is up, Peter Baker? And then he adds 8 years at almost to the day after American intelligence agencies, right? This is in October 2016, when American intelligence agencies publicly warned voters that Russia was trying to interfere in the 2016 campaign, a new attention-grabbing book on Tuesday revived the mystery of the relationship between the two by reporting that they secretly have been in touch over the last few years. And how does he know this? He spoke to an unnamed aide who said that the former president and current nominee, that Donald Trump has spoken to Vladimir Putin as many as 7 times since he left the office. Now, I want to point out to you, also, the other piece that is infuriating and is at the heart of this is in early 2020, when the COVID pandemic was sweeping our nation and the world, still in the era when Donald Trump was in denial or telling us to inject bleach, he was secretly sending COVID-19 testing equipment produced by Abbott, these little home labs that Abbott was making, to Vladimir Putin for his personal use. That's how close he was. Now, this is early 2020. Now, this is, I want to point out to you, very critical for a number of reasons. It was only a year. I mean, it was actually less than a year after Robert Mueller had delivered his report on Russian interference and warned that Putin was still up to his tricks. And remember, this is also at a time when Donald Trump had been caught trying to condition support to Ukraine, to Zelensky, based on whether Zelensky would do him a favor and lie about Joe Biden, who he presumed would be his political adversary and eventually was. Now, here is what's the most disturbing thing in this article. The aide, this is the aide to Donald Trump, described, and this is after Donald Trump was no longer president. The aide described being ordered out of Mr. Trump's office at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida in early 2024 so that the former president could take a call with Mr. Putin. Mar-a-Lago, guys. The aide told Mr. Woodward that Mr. Trump had spoken with Mr. Putin multiple times since leaving office. Okay, so guys, let me tell you this. This is incredibly disturbing for a number of reasons, not just what he did while he was in office, and not just the fact that he was at Mar-a-Lago, where he still has not returned all of the documents, and God knows he made copies of these national security secrets. Why is he on the phone with Vladimir Putin? What do you think? What does common sense tell you? Okay, now I want to show you let me tell you that David Rothkopf, who is connecting the dots, said this on Twitter. So let me get this straight. This was yesterday morning. So let me get this straight. Donald Trump was sitting in Mar-a-Lago on a trove of stolen U.S. national secrets, and while there, had Vladimir Putin on speed dial for regular private chats after he tried to overthrow our government. And Putin is helping his campaign now. Okay, and there are people who are actually vote for this guy. Oh, great. So let me actually give you, when the news was breaking yesterday, and again, we are right now talking about Donald Trump's massive betrayals, and then we're going to go and switch to something much more motivating and important, actually, because it could change the world, which is the Harris campaign and her media blitz this week. Just in like a few days from the weekend and through yesterday, what she has accomplished reaching out to 25 million viewers. And yeah, there might be overlaps, you guys, but you get the idea. Okay, so here is what we heard when the news broke, and I think this is really helpful to hear this and see the text of the conversation Donald Trump had with Putin, and we'll talk on the other side.
Also, some notable news about Donald Trump in this book. There are new details about former President Trump's relationship with Vladimir Putin. Specifically, the book reveals phone calls never before revealed between Trump and Putin, including a verbatim conversation where they discuss that Trump secretly sent to Putin scarce COVID testing machines for his personal use. This was at a time during the height of COVID where everybody wanted one of these. And we actually have, Woodward has the conversation between Trump and Putin in the book. Here's what they said. Putin, please don't tell anybody you sent these to me. Trump, I don't care, fine. Putin, no, I don't want you to tell anybody because people will get mad at you, not me. They don't care about me. Woodward also writes that a top Trump aide, Pamela, told him that Trump had as many as 7 phone calls with Vladimir Putin post-presidency since he left office.
Okay. Vladimir Putin said to Donald, don't tell anybody because they will get angry at you. This is in early 2020. Now, I need to give you, I'm going to show you quickly a Harris ad on this, and then I need to go back for you just 6 months before this, what Robert Mueller warned us, because you may have forgotten. I'm going to play this. Here we go.
Well, and I know Putin so well. I'd like to congratulate Vladimir Putin for having made yet another great deal. Did you see the deal we made?
Talk to him like that?
Oh, no, I had a very good relationship. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. And I'm trying to tell people, no, it's a good thing. When you see Putin and you see all of these people, they're at the top of their game. And I also have a very good relationship, as you know, with President Putin. And I think if we win, I think we're going to get it resolved very quickly. I really think we're going to get it resolved.
I hope we have more good relations.
We're going to have, oh, I see. Yeah, but you know, it takes 2 to tango, you know.
He tells us exactly what he thinks now. Remember, he used to say, I know nothing about Russia. You know, I have no relationships with them. Now, you know, he'll say Russia, there is no secret plot, but he reveals to us, obviously, what that relationship is. Now, I want to play for you this is late July of 2019. And this is the day when Robert Mueller is finally testifying before Congress. He's already released his report. Remember that Bill Barr completely whitewashed it and misrepresented to the public what it stood for by releasing a few-page letter? And by the time it came out, he'd already spun the press, even though people like me and Allison Gill of Mueller Report and others were like, that's not what the report says. It's a damning report. Okay, I'm going to play for you in this excerpt where Adam Schiff is asking questions of Robert Mueller. Listen carefully.
Russia informed campaign officials of that?
I'm not certain to what conversation.
Let me start it over.
Found evidence that Russia wanted to help Trump win the election, right?
I think generally that would be accurate.
Russia informed campaign officials of that?
I'm not certain to what conversation you're referring to.
Well, through an intermediary, they informed Papadopoulos that they could help with the anonymous release of stolen emails?
Accurate.
Russia committed federal crimes in order to help Donald Trump?
When you're talking about the computer crimes charged in our case, absolutely.
The Trump campaign officials built their strategy, their messaging strategy around those stolen documents?
Generally, that's true.
And then they lied to cover it up?
Generally, that's true.
Okay, you heard that, right? So that Trump Tower meeting where Junior was there, and there were folks from Russia connected to the Kremlin offering dirt on Hillary Clinton to them. And Junior said, we'd love it, especially later in summer, right? In the Mueller report, all of that was acknowledged. The only reason why they did not decide to indict Don Jr. or others at that meeting is because there was not enough evidence that there was an agreement, right? As part of a conspiracy, you have to have an agreement to break the law. Here, there was no agreement. They just said, we're going to give this to you. And there wasn't not enough evidence of this sort of agreement to break the law. And it gets a little more complicated than that. But the bottom line is Mueller is right here making this clear. Now, there is more. There is one more piece to Mueller on the lies that Donald Trump told. Here we go.
Director Mueller, a couple of my colleagues right here wanted to talk to you or ask you about lies. So let's talk about lies. According to your report, page 9, volume 1, witnesses lied to your office and to Congress. Those lies materially impaired the investigation of Russia interference, according to your report. Other than the individuals who pled guilty to crimes based on their lying to you and your team, did other witnesses lie to you?
I think there are probably a spectrum of witnesses in terms of those who are not telling the full truth, and those are outright liars.
Thank you very much. Outright liars. It is fair to say then that there were limits on what evidence was available to your investigation of both Russia election interference and obstruction of justice.
That's true, and it's usually the case.
And that lies by Trump campaign officials and administration officials impeded your investigation.
I would generally agree with that.
Thank
you. Okay. Right. And one of the reasons why Mueller was so hamstrung is because Bill Barr was in charge. And again, he handed this report. Now, we saw that there was, we did see that there was no impeachment started around this, right? But there was, of course, after the quid pro quo arrangement between Donald Trump trying to extort a lie from Vladimir Zelensky, right? Then there was. Now, I need you to remember something you may not know. So listen up. That very day in July that Robert Mueller testified, and he had said, the problem is, as we're sitting here, Russia is still interfering in our elections, which was true. The next day, the very next day, was when Donald Trump was on the phone call with Zelensky. They did not miss a beat, because now, as you connect the dots, you understand that the number one thing Vladimir Putin wanted from Donald Trump was to be able to take over Ukraine. That's what he has wanted. That's why Vladimir Putin hated Hillary Clinton, because she had his number. And that's why he was angry at Barack Obama for imposing those sanctions on Russia. So all this stuff was always clear to us. And you might say, well, so what? Well, the so what is Donald Trump is selling us out. What's in it for him? We know what Putin wanted. So what's in it for Donald? Well, one thing that's in it for Donald is that he looks up. He is a fanboy. He fawns over dictators. There's more, but I have a little evidence of this. And this is the former Prime Minister of Australia. And he made these comments in February of this year. But now Turnbull is people are actually watching this again. So let's play this, and you'll get a feel for how world leaders looked at Donald and his admiration for people like Putin.
Boy that goes to high school. When you see Trump with Putin, as I have on a few occasions, he's like the 12-year-old boy that goes to high school and meets the captain of the football team. My hero. It is really creepy. It's really creepy. Now,
And that struck you at the time?
Oh, absolutely. It struck everybody. It was like you could touch it. It was the creepiness was palpable.
Are you trying to say they're having a bromance?
No, I'm not saying. I'm just telling you what I saw. Regrettably, the Republican Party under Donald Trump, and particularly the right wing of the Republican Party, are very sympathetic to Vladimir Putin. I mean, I've been with Trump and Putin. Trump is in awe of Putin. Tyrants are often popular. You see, the key to democracy, liberal democracy, is that it empowers the majority, but it also, through the rule of law, constrains the majority. And if you get to the point where anybody who can muster a majority, and I don't think Trump can do that, by the way, but anyone who can muster a majority is given absolute power and then can do whatever they like to the minority, that's not a democracy. That is a tyranny. That is an autocracy, even if it's got the support of 51% of the population. That is not what makes a democracy. A democracy, as we understand it, is one where the rule of law protects all citizens and the rule of law applies to all citizens, whether they're the president or the prime minister or an ordinary, elector.
Wow. Very impressed with Malcolm Turnbull there. And maybe the U.S. Supreme Court should have listened to him. Again, this is incredibly disturbing and prescient, though, because this was February when he said this. So the key point is, one of the things Donald Trump wants from Putin is his admiration. He wants to be in the dictator's club, right? There's that. But there's something else we've always wondered. What is the dirt that Putin has on Donald Trump? What is it? I don't care if it's the P tape. I don't care if it's information, since they opened a dossier, the Kremlin did, when he first married Ivana, because she was from Czechoslovakia, which was then part of the Soviet Union. It's not necessarily embarrassing information about him. It could just be that he owes him a ton of money. It could also just be the carrot of wanting to be part of the dictator's club, right? And he doesn't realize, I mean, he probably does realize, but no, let me just say this differently. We realize that Donald Trump is being played by them. That is a fact. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about that. Why is it that this creepy hero worship is such a center part of Donald Trump's personality? And why is that so dangerous for the rest of us? Let's play yesterday Kamala Harris on Howard Stern talking about this. Here we go.
Did you ever think in your lifetime you would see a Republican not supporting NATO and wanting to disassemble NATO? I mean, what world are we living in?
And
this is
NATO,
so weird.
NATO, which is the greatest military alliance the world has ever known.
It's what my
You wanna
father's
talk about strength.
Yeah.
That is strength to embrace that alliance as America, as Americans. And he would walk away because he admires dictators
This is it.
Well, what did you
more
think?
than he does.
What did you
our
think of this thing that
lives.
just came out today? That Bob Woodward's book was saying that Trump was sending COVID tests to Putin, and Putin said, "Don't let anyone know." I mean, what is going on? What do you make of that?
So I actually said it even in the debate. I believe that Donald Trump has this desire to be a dictator. He admires strong men, and he gets played by them because he thinks that they're his friends,
Yeah.
and they are manipulating him full time and manipulating him by flattery
Yeah.
and with favor. And so, in the midst, to your point, as reported by Bob Woodward, in the height of the pandemic, and remember, and your listeners will remember, people were dying by the hundreds.
Yeah.
Everybody was scrambling to get these kits, the tests, the COVID test kits.
Couldn't get him.
Couldn't get them.
Right.
Couldn't get them anywhere.
Right.
And this guy who is president of the United States is sending them to Russia, to a murderous dictator for his personal use?
You only wish Putin would have gotten COVID and dropped dead. I wish that.
Well, the point being,
She can't say that.
that is just the most
Howard.
recent stark example of who Donald Trump is, that he secretly sent COVID test kits for the personal use of Putin, of Russia, an adversary to the United States, when he was talking about Americans should be putting bleach in their blood. Think about what this is. Think about this person who wants to be president again, who secretly is helping out an adversary when the American people are dying by the hundreds every day and in need of relief. And instead, how did he handle it domestically for Americans? He mismanaged the whole thing.
Fabulous, right? So this is what happened on the Stern Show. So this would give me a moment to pivot to the media blitz. But before, in all fairness, we absolutely do need to share Donald Trump's denial. So let's go. As expected, he is freaking out. Hold on to the ketchup bottles. Here was the statement made by the Trump campaign. Trump campaign statement on made-up stories by Bob Woodward. None of these made-up stories by Bob Woodward are true and are the work of a truly demented and deranged man who suffers from a debilitating case of Trump derangement syndrome. Woodward is an angry little man and is clearly upset because President Trump is successfully suing him because of the unauthorized publishing of recordings he made previously. President Trump gave him absolutely no access for this trash book that either belongs in the bargain bin of the fiction section of a discount bookstore or used as toilet tissue. Woodward is a total sleazebag who has lost it mentally and is slow, lethargic, incompetent, and overall a boring person with no personality. Oh no, that's me. Just kidding. Yeah, so of course that's what the sort of denial looks like. Notice how he always refers to men who are not as tall as him as small. Do you know the only man he has never spoken about as being a short man, as being small? Yeah, his buddy Vlad. Okay, so now let us turn to the media blitz. Let's do this next because I got something else after that too. So here's what we talked about before. Victor Shi of the Trump campaign. Of the Harris campaign. Sorry, Victor. And this is VP Harris, her reach this week. And again, call her daddy. 5 million viewers, 60 Minutes, 10.5 million. The View, 2.45 million. Howard Stern, 10 million. And Colbert, 3.2 million. She was making the rounds, especially in New York, because The View, The Stern Show, and Colbert was all yesterday, right? 60 Minutes aired on Monday. And Call Her Daddy, that aired we showed it on Monday, so I think that was sometime over the weekend when it was released. Okay, so let's talk about the thing that excites me the most. And I'm going to give you the short clip about this and then the longer discussion. And this is about being part of the sandwich generation and caring for elderly parents, and the fact that Medicare will not allow for reimbursement of home care when people need assistance. So here's the short thing that she said about this on The View, and then I'm going to go deeper into her discussion of it on The Stern Show.
So what I am proposing is that basically what we will do is allow Medicare to cover in-home health care. Oh, right.
Everyone in that audience knew why that was important. I'm going to play a more in-depth conversation with Howard about that.
Announced today my plan to make sure that Medicare covers at-home elder care, because probably a lot of your listeners are in that sandwich generation.
Oh my God.
Where they're taking care of young kids and their elder parents.
My mother's 97 years old. I'm not even going to tell you how old I am. I know you think I'm 30, but I am so old. And I have an old mother, 97 years old. The cost is, people don't know this yet. If they're not taking care of somebody elderly, it will bankrupt you.
Absolutely.
It will
right. Or your parent will not get the care they need, or you're going to have to leave your job.
Right.
Which means you're going to reduce your income to, depending on what it is, almost nothing in terms of your household income to do what you want to do, which is to give your parent the dignity they deserve with care.
And can you imagine if Medicare is impacted or Obamacare for that matter?
And look at what Donald Trump has been talking about for years, and look at his Project 2025. People should Google it. I mean, what they're doing and what he's talking about in terms of attacking Social Security, Medicare, undoing the Affordable Care Act, and which means the insurance companies can come back and deny people with pre-existing conditions. All of this is very real and very much at stake in this election.
Incredible. Incredible. Yeah, there is another clip I want to share with you, and I'm just concerned I might have already done it, but let's do this. This is also from the Stern Show.
Greatest military alliance.
Did you ever think in your lifetime you would see a Republican?
Sorry. That is, we already played that one. Here's the other. I think, no, we just did that one. Okay. So that's what we got mostly for the media blitz. Now, of course, I think you probably also saw Kamala Harris, maybe the clip of her on the Colbert Show, cracking open a beer. She's not much of a beer drinker, but that's kind of the joke, right? Who do you want to sit down and have a beer with? So she did this media blitz. Now, I think it's been successful, and she continues to attract former Republican officials who are pledging their loyalty to her campaign. And I want to play just one right here from Florida for a reason. Here we go.
Voting for the Harris waltz and maybe doing it with some enthusiasm is a fairly recent development. I'll give you two recent examples, both of which I'm very familiar with.
Hold on. This is the former chair of Florida's Republican Party. He's voting for Harris. Now, let me just make sure I get the beginning of this for you. Here we go.
Actually voting for the Harris waltz and maybe doing it with some enthusiasm is a fairly recent development. I'll give you two recent examples, both of which I'm very familiar with. One is the natural disasters. That's always been a bipartisan issue. Both Democrats and Republicans have worked together to assist the people in harm's way. Well, the White House asked Congress to pass a bill, a supplemental bill, to really help people with these disasters because we may be running out of cash. All of a sudden, the trolling, the Trump operatives and everybody else started saying, well, they're giving that money to illegal immigrants. Not true. There are various parts of FEMA that are funded separately, and natural disasters is one of them. Well, when Andrew hit Florida, which has been one of many, I worked hand in hand with the George H.W. Bush administration and the Democrat Governor Lon Childs. It was always a bipartisan spirit. Everybody wanted to help those in harm's way. Well, you take it now, the Trump operatives are already lying about FEMA not having resources, about FEMA not going over. When the White House asked the Congress to meet for a supplemental bill, to pass a supplemental bill for FEMA, they said, call us after November 5th.
Okay, you get the idea. It's no surprise, it shouldn't be, that the former chair of the Florida Republican Party is supporting Harris Walz and is also calling out the lies, the dangerous lies coming from the Republican Party right now, especially including Donald Trump, the leader of their party, about the disaster response, right? They are all playing politics. Now, before I move on to my next topic, I do actually want to share with you this clip from the Colbert Show. And this is not about cracking open a beer. This is about a little more substance here. Okay, here we go. And you know why J.D. Vance is willing to take that spot is because the minute he has the opportunity, he's going to try to get Trump out of the Oval Office, and he's going to get his own interior decorator to redo it, and he is going to polish up the Resolute desk and take over. That is J.D. Vance's plan. There's no other reason why you would take this job. Now, let's turn to a couple other elections before we get to Crazy Town. I want to talk to you about Michigan and Ohio, these critical Senate races. Now, first, I want to talk to you about Elise Slotkin, who I voted for in my absentee ballot. Or they call it a mail-in ballot because you don't need a reason for having a mail-in ballot here in Michigan. And I voted for Slotkin because she has an impressive career. She served the country in the military. She's utterly brilliant. And she was in Congress, and now she is trying to run for this. I mean, she's running right now for the open Senate seat. And that I feel that her opponent, Mike Rogers, is kind of been dragged into this because Debbie Stabenow decided to call it quits and move on and open that seat up. And I don't think he had any intention of returning to politics, but he's got the biggest name in the Republican Party. And so probably people encouraged him or his ego spoke to him. But he is not actually truly a Michigan resident. He is a resident of Florida. So, and he's now claiming he is pro-choice when he is not. Let's play the debate that they just had. She cleans up with him. She eats him up. And then we are going to play some more details from Rachel Maddow, not from last night, but from earlier, about the real story behind Mike Rogers. Okay, here we go, Elise Slotkin.
I was here in Michigan and I voted yes on Proposition 3. You were in Florida. You voted in Florida. You weren't here. For some people, this issue is a talking point. He's put his finger in the wind and he says, now I can't win if I don't, look good on this issue. And so he's changed 30 years of being unilaterally pro-life, of never breaking once with his party on this issue, right? So it's not a talking point to women. It is our lives. It's whether we bleed to death in a parking lot. It's who and when gets to decide how we have a family. Do not trust him.
That is true. And you might not know what Proposition 3 that was on the Michigan ballot. It was a referendum to provide reproductive freedom for all. It was citizen initiated and it amended our Constitution. And it was part of the 2022 election. And he didn't vote for it, as she pointed out, because he was living in Florida. Now, he still flipping lives in Florida. Let's listen to Rachel Maddow, who was on the case.
You could do worse than this $1.6 million estate in Cape Coral, Florida. You can see it has beautiful views. It has a very nice pool. This home, it's called an estate in its real estate listings. It was purchased just 2 years ago in the summer of 2022. It was purchased by Michigan Republican Congressman Mike Rogers. He served 7 terms in Congress. He spent 6 years in the Michigan State Senate before that, all before he decided to pitch it all in and retire to Florida to live in his dream house. I mean, between D.C. and Michigan, I guess, I don't know if you can blame him for wanting a taste of exceptional waterfront living in a much warmer location. Just 6 months after Mike Rogers bought his new dream home in Florida, an even more prime piece of real estate opened up. Michigan Democratic U.S. Senator Debbie Stabenow announced that she was retiring from the U.S. Senate. And this new Florida resident, Mike Rogers, he really wanted to run for that Michigan U.S. Senate seat. But unfortunately, that would mean he'd have to move back to Michigan. Well, Mike Rogers decided he would buy this lovely little house.
Also
in
waterfront.
Lake Township, Michigan. He bought it, then immediately knocked it down. This photo was taken by local reporter John King of the Michigan Advance on April 30th. It shows an empty plot of land where the house Mike Rogers bought used to be. 2 months after this picture was taken, Mike Rogers registered to vote using that property as his home address.
Unbelievable.
Then 1 month after that, he voted for himself in the Republican primary for that U.S. Senate seat using that address as his voter registration location. Now, all this is turning out to be a problem for U.S. Senate candidate Mike Rogers. According to the Detroit Free Press, the house that Mike Rogers is still building on that spot isn't done. It, quote, did not at the time he voted and does not now.
You get the idea, right? But you probably are old enough to remember that Mitt Romney claimed an address like in Massachusetts that was in a family member's basement. at one point in time. This is kind of a trick that Republican candidates often play. And speaking of Republican candidates, I got one more before Crazy Town. We have the race to unseat Sherrod Brown, and he will not be unseated, right? I love Sherrod Brown, longtime senator from Ohio. And Bernie Moreno is running against him. And this is the terrible, anti-choice, women-hating guy who isn't really truly from Ohio. So let's play Sherrod Brown and then a little more about Moreno, just to remember what is at stake here.
Deliver on specific things that tangibly matter in people's lives. And that's really why I win, because I talk about those things and we've delivered on those things. We've delivered on veterans help with those football field-sized burn pits. We fixed the pensions of 100,000 Ohio union workers that were going to lose half their pensions. Tax credit, albeit temporary, but it had an impact. We need to show the public that we care, that we can deliver, and that it can affect their lives.
And he does deliver. He's an incredibly good man. He is truly a champion of the working people and represents all Americans, and he has a heart. He deserves to be in the Senate. And then we have this creep, Moreno. And I just want to share with you, in case you had forgotten, this. Okay, here we go.
Candidate Bernie Moreno is getting harsh backlash tonight because of comments he made over the weekend about women who support reproductive rights. NBC4 obtained a video recorded at a Warren County town hall during which Moreno accused suburban women of being focused solely on their ability to get an abortion and questioned why it would even be an issue for older women.
You know, the left has a lot of single-issue voters. Sadly, by the way, there's a lot of suburban women. A lot of suburban women that are like, listen, abortion's it. If I can't have an abortion in this country whenever I want, I will vote for anybody else. Okay, a little crazy, by the way, but especially for women that are like past 50.
Okay. Couple things. You know, I've said that abortion and reproductive freedom, the right not to be forced to carry to term an embryo that you do not want, a baby that you don't want in the future, that is not a single issue. That is a non-negotiable point. Freedom is non-negotiable. Secondly, as you know, saying that you don't want people like him making decisions about what goes on in your body is the most libertarian and the sort of the most freedom-oriented, should be a conservative value, that the state should not be getting between you and your bodily parts. This is your personal property, is your body. That is your freedom. That is your life, right? And it's not just about abortion. We know that pregnancies don't all last, and people end up in a situation quite commonly. I mean, it's only it's like, I don't know what the fraction is. I've looked at these numbers up before, but when an embryo develops, it often just doesn't survive. You have, many women have these miscarriages they don't even know about, but sometimes when you're miscarrying, you're in danger of bleeding out, bleeding to death. And women cannot safely get the care they need, right? And you know that this is hugely important. The U.S. Supreme Court just refused to put on hold the Texas law that puts women's lives in jeopardy. We cannot allow someone like this to be in the Senate. Right now, we need every possible vote to get politicians out of our bedrooms, out of our bodies, out of our doctor's offices. And also, we do not need people like him standing at the emergency room door when you or your daughter or your friend's daughter or anybody we know or don't even know, we have compassion for, they come to the hospital, and this dude is going to stand at the door and say, you can't come in. Why? And finally, I don't live in Florida, but I care deeply about the people in harm's way. So again, this kind of reveal about his selfishness. Now, here we go, guys. It is now time, as we wrap things up, for Crazy Town, because we need some crazy today. So here we go. Let's hit it. So today's Crazy Town is a really interesting interview that someone had with a Donald Trump supporter, trying to understand a little bit better about what she thinks Donald Trump could accomplish if he were elected, or in fact, what he did accomplish while in office. Let's play that.
Say that Biden is senile. Do you believe that?
I believe it.
So senile Biden, right? Yeah. Quote, senile Biden has passed the bipartisan infrastructure bill.
He didn't do it.
The PACT Act.
He's an empty suit.
Okay, so with him and the help of Congress, we can revise the wording. They passed the bipartisan infrastructure bill, the PACT Act, the CHIPS and Science Act. Let me ask you, what's one bill that Trump passed?
What's one bill that Trump passed? Oh my God! What's one bill? His policies. Okay.
You repeat the question like it's obvious, but you don't give me an answer.
No, I know one bill that he passed.
Name it.
Okay. Well, look at what he implemented with security in the border. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Security in the border. Roe versus Wade. Okay. The economy was up under Trump because
Roe v. Wade is a decent answer. That's just from the Supreme Court, but that's a decent answer. So you're pro-life.
I'm pro-choice.
You're
Guys, see you tomorrow morning.